I ordered a new UI, and it looks incredible, I just have to say. And I just want to see if the animations work or not, because I hope they do. Because if it does, it'll be amazing. And as you can see, it is the second episode, and we are talking about Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. If you don't know who he is the one that created and was the founding father of Sherlock Holmes. Yes, the Sherlock Holmes, the one that they made two movies, making the third one in, I don't know when it's going to come out, and a TV series starring Benedict Cumberbatch. Yeah, that guy. And so I thought, let's just make a history kind of thing about who Sir Arthur Conan Doyle is before he actually made the first what's it called, first book. Because if I continued after that, the video will be just too long. And yeah, and this intro is too long. Let's just jump right into the first episode, I guess. All right, so now that we're in the first episode, I guess we have to press play and see if the UI works. It does! Amazing! Amazing! So, as you can see, I did my research and I figured out a lot about him. You'll see in this episode. Sir Arthur Conan Doyle was born on May 22nd, 1859 in Edinburgh, Scotland. The Doyle family was very successful and wealthy. However, his father, Charles Doyle, was kind of an alcoholic, and he was a somewhat successful artist. He wasn't Picasso level, but he wasn't a beginner level artist. Now, moving to his father, Charles, when he was 22nd, he got married to someone named Mary Foley. Mary Foley at the time was 17 years old, but she was incredibly talented and educated for a 17-year-old. And Arthur, when he was growing up, his mother Mary would tell him stories in a way that was incredibly intriguing for him and made him love storytelling. And that is kind of like the beginning spark of him making and loving just writing in general. And we will see if in the future that his mother helping him, making him love storytelling, kind of helped him throughout the years. And we'll see right now. Arthur was 9 years old. A family member of the Doyles that was very wealthy wanted to send him to a boarding school in London, and that just brought joy and happiness to the Arthur and his family, Charles and Mary. It just exceeded their expectations. They never expected it, because they're living in a small town. They never expected to go there, and so he loved the idea. However, Arthur hated the bigotry surrounding him and his studies, because it was just too much for him and he didn't really like it. So during the 7 years that he spent there, he kind of hated it. And the only times that he loved those times and the memories that he had was just great was whenever he was sending letters to his mother and whenever he was telling stories to his younger classmates. And as you can see, the link between what his mother did when he was a kid and making him love storytelling because of the way she told stories is helping him now, because stories is the only thing that makes him happy, and of course sports. But other than that, storytelling was mostly the thing that made him into someone that loved just living. Arthur graduated in 1876 at the age of 17 years old. And yes, those 7 years that he spent inside the boarding school were tough and hard on him. However, he did say the situation called for an energy and application so that one will be bound to try to meet. What I think he means is that the hardships that he went through just helped him be a better person and reach his goals that he wanted to reach. That is to graduate, to prove to everyone that I did something and I graduated. That is just amazing of how he can turn something bad into good, like how Sherlock Holmes does. And you would see that whenever you read the Sherlock Holmes books or watch the movies, you see that every time he goes into some place of somewhat of a bad place, he just tries to turn it into something good, and that is just incredible. And I think that just informs you about who Arthur really is. Now we are done with the first parts. So there's an arrow. I don't think we need to go back. I think we should go forward because, new thing, and just see if the animation works or not. It works! It works! Yes! Next episode is college life. As you know, Arthur graduated in 1876 and he had to go back to his father in Scotland. And as you know also, his father is an artist and if you know families, you know that if the father is something, he really wants his son to be the same thing. And it's kind of like a tradition thing where it's like, okay, I'm an artist, I want you to be an artist. It's kind of like, you need to be an artist. However, Arthur, he chose a different path, a much harder path, actually, in my opinion. He chose to pursue a degree in the medical field. And yes, no one told him, hey, it's either law school or medical school. It's like, he picked it. And there's a reason why he picked it. He was actually influenced by another person. So you see, times were tough in the Doyle family. So what they did was, what his mother did, really, they brought in a roommates type stuff to their house so they can pay rent and add to their income stream. And that person that was a roommate at the time was called Dr. Brian Charles Waller. Dr. Waller was a doctor, like an actual doctor. And so when Arthur came to his house and he saw Dr. Waller, he fell in love with medicine because he kept on talking with him. And he influenced Arthur to be the doctor. So Arthur is in university to study medicine. His dream, or not really dream, but his goal, he reached it. He joined the medicine field. And so he talked with a lot of professors. He talked with a lot of students. He loved it there. He loved the people. But there was one professor that he was amazed by. He wasn't amazed by how he looked. He was amazed by the characteristics of that professor. The professor name is Dr. Joseph Bell. See, Miss Dr. Bell had stuff that just amazed and intrigued Arthur. And he was a master of observation, logic, deduction, and diagnosis of everything. And all these characteristics are in a character that Arthur made. And that character is Sherlock Holmes. And the base of Sherlock Holmes is from Dr. Bell. And without Dr. Bell and without Arthur going to medical field, he wouldn't have seen Dr. Bell and he wouldn't have gotten Sherlock Holmes. And that is why I said in the beginning that Arthur made a good choice of going to the medical field. During his studies there, he wasn't just influenced by the professor, he was also influenced by the action of Arthur himself. During Arthur's studies in medical field, he wrote a short story. The short story called is The Mystery of Sasas Valley. And this is his first short story, and it's not his first really. It's his first published short story that it was put in the Edinburgh magazine called Chambers Journal, which was an amazing accomplishment for him because it like moved a path for him to love writing and not just telling stories, but to write stories and publish them. That very year, Arthur loved it so much that he made a second story called The American Tale, and it was published in the London Society. It was because of this that it caused him to write years later that it was this year that I first learned that shillings might be earned in other ways than by filing files. And that just proved to him how big the world of writing really is and how much you can actually earn from it and make it as your living. All right, now that we're done with college life, I guess we should move on to part 3 of 4. We're almost done with the video, so hang in there. All right, so this one is called Adventures in College. This part of his life is very important because it made him realize how much he loved adventures, and it kind of wrote a path for him to write Sherlock Holmes, because if you know Sherlock Holmes, he loves adventures. It's just in his life. He just loves adventures, loves going anywhere, saying yes to anything. Just like Sherlock Holmes, adventures just knock on his door. You see, in his 3rd year of medical school, he got the opportunity to be a ship surgeon on the Hope, a whaling boat. It's where you kill whales and you get them, or seals or something like that. You just go on the boat, kill seals, and you come back. To join this adventure, he needed to leave everything. He needed to leave his school. He needed to leave his family, and more importantly, he needed to leave his studies. He needed those studies, but took the risk, and it was great for him because he wrote whenever he set sail to his mother, "You will be glad to hear that I never was more happy in my life." He loved it. He loved the thrill of going somewhere you're not going to know where you're going to go. He just loved adventures. He was just like Sherlock Holmes, loving the adventures, loving the ride of where you're going to go. Like any adventures, there had to be problems, and this is one of the problems that happened, and he almost died because of it. And it's these quotes that I'm going to say is in Dangerous Work, Diary of an Arctic Adventure. It's Arthur's diary. I'll leave the link to the book down below. below where you can find more about this adventure, and I'll just read you some quotes about the adventure of how bad this problem really is that happened to him. I had just killed a seal on a large piece of ice when I fell over the side. My body was near and the water was deadly cold. I had to hold onto the edge of the ice to prevent my sinking, but it was too smooth and slippery to climb up by, until at last I got hold of the seal's hind flippers and managed to pull myself up by them. And like, he almost died because like the freezing cold, like you don't imagine how cold the water really is, because it's at the Arctic, and so it's very cold, and he could have died, but he luckily got up. And that is just what makes Arthur an incredible author, is because of the stuff that he's been through, the amount of experience that he's been through in adventures and writing and storytelling, where he can write something like Sherlock Holmes and make it good and make it amazing. All right, let's go to the fourth and last part of this video. All right, so now we're on the post-medical part of the video. This is a very important stage in his life, because this is where he's going to start and going to build his life up to be where he really wants it to be. He graduated in the year 1881 with a Bachelor of Medicine and a Master of Surgery. And so the first job he really got wasn't really that great of a job. He was working as a medical officer in a steamer called Mayubu. It's an old vessel. It goes from Liverpool to West Africa and then back to England. Because he didn't like it, whenever it reached England, he just quit. He was like, I'm sorry, I'm quitting this job. I'm not gonna do this anymore, and I'm gonna find something that I actually do like. So he joined a doctor in Plymouth, England. That's a city, by the way. It wasn't really a successful venture for him. It wasn't doing so well for him. He was in the edge of bankruptcy, and it was just not so good with him. And he talks more about this in the Stark Munro letters. Leave a link for that. You can find that on Google, free by the way, in the description. He talks more about this and kind of led him to opening his practice as an ophthalmologist. It was his first ever personal practice that's under his name, and he is the owner of this place. So what he did, he rented a house with 2 rooms, and he used those 2 rooms for his patient. He didn't focus on the house as much. He wanted to be a good doctor and succeed in this venture that he did. He actually succeeded. After 3 years of working very hard, day in, day out, he succeeded, and he got a comfortable income where he can live, he can get married, he can live a normal life. And so what he did was he got married. He got married in 1885 to a young woman named Louisa Hawkins. Louisa Hawkins was a sister of one of his patients. Great doctor, remember, right? He got married to her and they spent a wonderful life. However, she did die on July 4th, 1906, and it hurt him. So a year later, he got married to Jean. It really hurt him. So he got married, but he stayed with Jean until he died at July 7th, 1930. He died, he passed away, and then 10 years later, Jean passed away. Now that we spoke about his marriage, so let's go back to 1866. I chose that for a specific reason. You see, his lights to becoming an author was still in his brain. He still wanted that to happen. So what he did was he wrote a novel. That year, he wrote a novel called Tangled Skein, and he was still writing it. It took him 2 years to finish writing it and editing it and just complete everything about that novel. And that novel, the name changed. And it was good that the name changed, because the name is A Study in Scarlet. If you know Sherlock Holmes, and if you don't, I'll tell you now. A Study in Scarlet is the first Sherlock Holmes book in his series. It's the beginning. It's probably one of the best Sherlock Holmes books out of every Sherlock Holmes book he wrote. And it was the pusher to spotlight. It was the pusher to make Arthur the person he is today, and the start of an amazing duo, Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson. So since the rest is history, let's go back to the first page. I know there's a lot more to be talked about, but the video, I don't want it to be too long. I just wanted to talk about his early life, his A Study of Scarlet book. That, I just wanted to see who he really is before he was famous, before he rose to fame. And that's what this video really is. It's a history breakdown of who Arthur Conan Doyle was before he became who he is. And I hope you liked it. If you did, please leave a like, subscribe, share. If you didn't like it and you already knew all the stuff that I said, dislike the video. Both ways, subscribe, share the video to your friends, and comment what I should do next, what suggestions you want me to talk about. And yeah, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.